I started planning his birthday 3 months in advance. Not because anyone asked me to, but because my heart wouldn't let me do otherwise. I wanted everything to be perfect. He was turning 35, a milestone, I thought, and I wanted to remind him, without saying a word, how deeply loved he is. I used my pension money bit by bit, skipping small things for myself so I could buy those navy blue linens he loved as a teenager. I hand-stitched every napkin. I baked test cakes until I found the perfect one. I even painted the old chairs in the backyard with my aching hands. I didn't complain, not once. That's what mothers do. Or at least, that's what I believed. Every night I'd sit with my planner, adding notes, checking weather forecasts, and calling neighbors to help with logistics. I went to the flower market at 5 in the morning to get fresh lilies, his favorite, and arranged them in vases myself. I didn't hire a decorator. I didn't order catering. I wanted every detail to carry my fingerprints, my time, my effort, my love. Because I wasn't just throwing a party. I was offering him a piece of my heart, laid out in lights, flowers, and carefully folded tablecloths. When the big day came, the house glowed. The sun broke through the curtains, casting soft golden light over the living room. Everything was ready. The guests began to arrive, old friends, co-workers, his wife's family. Everyone complimented the food, the decor, the framed photos from his childhood I had hung on string lights across the backyard fence. I smiled at every compliment but kept looking at the gate, waiting for him to come through. I imagined his face lighting up, running into my arms like when he was little. I was so sure I'd feel that warmth again. When he finally arrived, my heart almost burst. He looked around, smiled, hugged his wife, and then walked past me with a distracted kiss on the cheek. I told myself it was nerves, excitement, the crowd. That he'd notice it all soon, the cake shaped like his childhood bike, the embroidered banner with his name, the playlist of songs I used to sing to him. He's just overwhelmed, I thought. But something inside me trembled. A whisper I chose to ignore. As the evening went on, laughter filled the air. People danced, toasted, took pictures under the lights. I stayed close to the kitchen, making sure everything ran smoothly. I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to make it about me. But in truth, I waited. For a moment. A word. A look. Some recognition. Something to tell me he saw me, not just as a helper in the background, but as his mother. The woman who built this evening with her bare hands and beating heart. And then came the speech. He grabbed the microphone, tapped it twice, smiled wide, and said, "Tonight is so special. And I owe it to someone who's been like a second mother to me. Someone who has supported me endlessly." My heart swelled for a second, until I heard the words, "To my mother-in-law, thank you for everything." Applause erupted. People clapped. And I froze. I blinked. My smile didn't move. My hands trembled slightly. And inside me, something sacred, shattered. I stood there, silent, as the applause echoed like thunder inside my chest. I looked around the room, faces smiling, glasses clinking, some people even turning to nod at the woman he called the one who's always supported me. She smiled, of course. Why wouldn't she? She was being celebrated. And me? I was invisible. The woman who changed his diapers, who sat up all night when he had a fever, who worked double shifts just to buy his first bike. I wasn't even mentioned. Not a name. Not a glance. But I didn't make a scene. That's not who I am. I stood up slowly, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the kitchen like I had a task to complete. No one noticed. Not even him. I took off my apron, the one I wore to keep my hands clean while serving the guests, and folded it gently. Then I grabbed my purse, walked out the back door, and left. Just like that. No one stopped me. No one called out. That hurt even more than the words he didn't say. I walked 3 blocks to my sister's house in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just opened her gate, sat on her porch swing, and exhaled. She came out, saw my face, and didn't ask anything. She just sat beside me and held my hand. The kind of silence that only someone who's known you forever understands. That night, I slept in her guest room, the same room I used to nap in during family lunches years ago, when my back ached from working too much. And somehow, I felt both at home and completely lost. The next morning, I woke up early and wrote a letter. Just one small note, no anger, no guilt. Only a sentence: when you remember who's been with you since the beginning, I'll know it's time to come back. I walked back to my house, still full of balloons and leftovers, and left the envelope on the table. I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't slam the door. I just turned around and left again. This time, with no intention of returning. In the days that followed, my phone buzzed a few times. His name appeared on the screen. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. He sent messages, asking where I was, if I was okay. But not once did he say what he should have. Not once did he mention what he had done. Silence became my language. And maybe, just maybe, it was the only way he'd finally listen. Now let me ask you, if you had been in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have walked out too? Or would you have stayed, smiled through the pain, and waited for a sorry that never came? Speech balloon, tell me in the comments. I want to hear your truth. Your story might be mine too. A week passed. Then another. He didn't stop trying. Messages filled my phone, some short, some long. Mom, where are you? Are you okay? Please call me. But none of them touched what I needed to hear. Not once did he say, I'm sorry. Not once did he mention the toast. That one sentence. That one moment that changed everything. It haunted me, and I suspect, though he never admitted it, it haunted him too. I stayed at my sister's house in the guest room with the pink curtains. I helped her fold laundry, cooked lunch on Sundays, and watered her orchids in the morning. Life slowed down. No decorations to plan. No shopping lists. No crumbs to sweep after guests. For the first time in a long time, I was just me. Not the background helper. Not the silent presence. Just a woman who had spent her life giving, and finally paused to ask, "And qu'est mi vie?" Then came the idea. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want pity. I just wanted him to see. To truly see. So I opened the old chest at the foot of my bed, the one with the dusty brass latch. Inside, there were photo albums, some from the 80s, some from his first years of school, his birthdays, Christmas mornings, scraped knees, science fair ribbons, and handmade cards that once said, "I love you, Mommy." I picked out the best ones. The ones where I was not just in the background, but holding him, guiding him, laughing with him, loving him. I spent 2 full afternoons building the album. Each photo carefully chosen. Each page laid out with soft hands. On the last page, I wrote, "You toasted the woman who came later, but you forgot the one who was always there." I wrapped it gently, wrote his name on the envelope, and mailed it. Not a word more. Just memories. Because sometimes, reminders are more powerful than explanations. I don't know what he felt when he opened it. I wasn't there. But 3 days later, I heard the gate creak. And when I looked through the curtain, he was there, standing like a boy again. Disheveled, eyes swollen, hands shaking. "Folded hands if you're still with me, thank you." Truly. This story is just getting to the part that changed everything. What came next was something I never expected. And I believe it's the part you need to hear most. He didn't knock. Just stood there, holding the album tight against his chest. For a moment, we both froze. 2 people separated by 1,000 unsaid words. He looked older, like he hadn't been sleeping. His eyes searched mine, not with arrogance, not with excuses, but with the weight of someone who finally saw the truth. "Mom," he whispered, voice barely holding. But I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just opened the gate and stepped aside. We sat on my sister's porch in silence. The same swing where I had cried in the first night of my absence now held us both. He opened the album again. Turned each page slowly. His fingers trembled when he reached the photo of his 3rd birthday, the one where I held his cake with one hand and held him with the other. "I didn't see it," he said. "All these years, you were always there." I nodded, still silent. He needed to say it. To feel it. To carry it. Then he broke. Not loudly, but in the quiet way only grown men do when the guilt becomes too heavy. He sobbed into his hands. "I thought I was being fair. I didn't mean to erase you. I just forgot how much you gave. I didn't offer comfort. Not yet." Because the wound was still open, and sometimes, people need to bleed a little before they begin to heal. I simply said, "I know." And that was enough to make him cry harder. He begged me to come home. Promised he'd change. Said the toast was a mistake, a blind spot, not a reflection of what I meant to him. But I couldn't say yes. Not yet. I told him I needed time. That some silences take longer to rebuild into words. And for the first time, he respected that. He didn't push. He just nodded and stayed sitting beside me, not as a son begging for comfort, but as a man accepting responsibility. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was upset, but because something in me had shifted. I had waited my whole life for recognition, and when it came, it didn't roar. It whispered. And maybe that's what I needed all along, not applause, not a speech, but a moment of truth. A moment where he saw me, not as an old woman or a duty, but as his mother. The one who never left, even when I walked away. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. He started calling every evening, not to ask for forgiveness, but just to talk. Sometimes he'd tell me about work. Other times, he'd share a memory from childhood that made him smile. I listened, said little, but inside, I knew he was trying. Not to undo what had been done, because some things can't be undone, but to rebuild from what was left. And that, for me, was enough to keep the line open. Weeks later, he asked if we could have lunch. Just the two of us. No occasion. No speeches. Just mother and son. I agreed. He cooked. Nothing fancy, just grilled chicken and rice, but the plate had a flower next to the napkin. A small one. Lavender. He remembered I liked it. That gesture meant more than any toast ever could. We ate slowly. Talked like two people getting to know each other again. Carefully. Gently. With all the pieces still tender. At the end of the meal, he raised his glass, not for a speech, but for a sentence. To you, Mom. The one who never left. Even when she was gone. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Because sometimes, acknowledgement doesn't need to be loud, just honest. And in that moment, I saw the boy I raised, and the man he was still becoming. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Today, we live close, but not in the same house. I go when I want. I leave when I need. He knows my time is mine now. And every family gathering, birthdays, holidays, dinners, he always starts the evening the same way. He raises his glass and says, to my mother, the one who taught me what love looks like, not with words, but with sacrifice. And I smile. Because now, I am no longer invisible. There's a kind of love that asks for nothing. That builds quietly, supports endlessly, and only wants to be seen once in a while. That was my love for him. And I learned something too. Sometimes, to be seen, you have to walk away. Not out of anger, but to teach, in silence, what presence truly means.